Compare the laborer carrying heavy stones under the scorching sun to the strategist signing a contract in a cool, air-conditioned room. If hard work and effort were the only currency of the universe, that laborer would be the wealthiest man on earth. Why isn't he? Why does the hardest physical struggle often yield the least reward? This question has haunted honest men for centuries, gnawing at the foundations of every philosophy that promises success through sacrifice alone. You have been lied to about the nature of abundance. You have been told that if you just work harder, push longer, sacrifice more, the universe will finally reward your efforts. But look around you. Look at the exhausted faces of those who have given everything and received nothing. Look at the broken bodies of those who believed that sweat equity was the ultimate contract with destiny. The truth is far more mysterious and far more liberating than the simple gospel of hard work. The universe does not count your hours. It does not weigh your struggle. It operates on an entirely different principle, one that the great master James Allen understood with crystalline clarity. This principle will either elevate you beyond your wildest expectations or trap you in a cycle of noble poverty forever. James Allen reveals that the world does not give you what you want based on your sweat. It gives you what you accept based on your soul. You do not get what you work for. You get what you secretly believe you deserve. This is the law of worth, and it operates with the precision of mathematics and the inevitability of gravity. Most men live their entire lives without ever discovering this truth, wondering why their monumental efforts produce such meager results. They blame the economy, the system, their circumstances, their luck. They blame everything, except the one factor that determines their entire reality, their internal estimate of their own value. Allen wrote in his masterwork that a man's outer conditions are always harmoniously related to his inner state, and this is not mysticism or positive thinking dressed in spiritual garb. This is the fundamental architecture of human experience. Your consciousness of worth is broadcasting a signal every moment of every day, and the universe is responding to that signal with mathematical precision. If you feel small, you will receive small things. If you feel unworthy, you will find ways to sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. If you secretly believe that abundance is for others but not for you, then you have signed your own decree of limitation, and no amount of external effort can override that internal verdict. In this video, we will stop looking at the external grind and look at the internal setting. We are going to learn how to adjust your internal thermostat of worthiness, because if this thermostat is set to poverty, no amount of hard work can heat up your life. This is the knowledge that separates those who struggle heroically and die poor from those who live in natural abundance without apparent effort. You have seen them, those individuals who seem to attract wealth, opportunity, and success as naturally as flowers attract bees. They are not necessarily more talented than you. They are not working harder than you. They have simply configured their internal reality to match the external abundance they desire. This is not a matter of affirmations or wishful thinking. This is about fundamentally restructuring your relationship with value, with worthiness, with your place in the economic order of the universe. I am asking you to make a pact with yourself right now. For the next minutes of this video, suspend everything you think you know about success and wealth. Release the bitter stories you tell yourself about why you haven't achieved what you desire. Open yourself to a truth so radical that it will feel uncomfortable at first. You have been operating with a faulty thermostat, and that thermostat can be reset. The question is not whether you can change your external circumstances. The question is whether you are willing to change your internal estimate of what you deserve. If you are ready for this journey, signal your commitment by engaging with this video right now. Like it, subscribe to this channel, and prepare to have your understanding of success completely transformed. The masters did not leave us vague inspirational platitudes. They left us precise instructions for reprogramming the consciousness of worth. Let us begin. Hard work without a consciousness of value is like trying to fill a bucket that is full of holes. You can pour effort in forever, the water flowing endlessly from your depleted reserves, but your self-image, the bucket itself, cannot hold the result. It drains away as fast as you pour it in, leaving you perpetually empty despite your continuous exertion. This metaphor captures the tragedy of the modern worker, the man or woman who dedicates decades to labor, who sacrifices health and time and relationships, only to find themselves still struggling at the end of each month. They have been filling a leaky bucket their entire lives, and no one ever told them to fix the bucket. The holes in this bucket are your unconscious beliefs about limitation, your inherited programming about scarcity, your deep-seated conviction that you are somehow less deserving than others. These beliefs were not chosen consciously. They were absorbed from your environment, your upbringing, the collective consciousness of lack that permeates society. Perhaps you grew up hearing that money doesn't grow on trees, that you have to work hard for every penny, that rich people are greedy or corrupt. Perhaps you watched your parents struggle and internalized the belief that struggle is simply the nature of existence. Perhaps you experienced rejection or failure and concluded that you are fundamentally inadequate. Whatever the source, these beliefs created holes in your bucket, and until you repair them, no amount of work will create lasting abundance. The leaky bucket operates silently and invisibly, which is why most people never identify it as the source of their problems. They feel the symptoms constantly: the exhaustion, the frustration, the sense of running in place despite maximum effort. But they misdiagnose the cause. They think they need to pour more water, work more hours, try harder strategies. They never consider that the problem is not the volume of water, but the integrity of the container. James Allen understood this with painful clarity. He saw that men could transform their entire lives not by changing their circumstances, but by changing their thoughts. The outer world is merely a reflection of the inner world, and if the inner world is programmed for lack, the outer world will manifest lack regardless of how much energy you expend. This is not a punishment or a cosmic joke. This is simply how consciousness operates. Your subconscious mind is like a faithful servant that takes your orders literally. When you tell it through your thoughts and feelings that you are unworthy, it arranges circumstances to validate that belief. When you tell it that success is for others but not for you, it finds ways to ensure you remain on the outside looking in. The subconscious does not judge whether your beliefs are true or false, helpful or destructive. It simply executes them with perfect fidelity. Consider the man who finally lands a higher-paying job after years of struggle. This should be his breakthrough moment, the validation of all his effort. But watch what happens. Within months, mysterious expenses arise. His car breaks down. Medical bills appear. He makes poor financial decisions he would never have made before. His bucket has simply expanded to match his new income, but the holes remain the same size, draining away the increase as efficiently as they drained away his previous salary. He returns to the same level of financial stress, just with bigger numbers. This is not bad luck or coincidence. This is the law of worth operating with precision. His external income increased, but his internal sense of deserving did not. The universe, through the mechanism of his own subconscious choices and unconscious sabotage, brought his external reality back into alignment with his internal thermostat. He is not being punished. He is simply experiencing the mathematical consequence of his consciousness. If you want to change your results, you cannot just change your actions. You must change the consciousness that generates those actions. You must repair the bucket before you can fill it. The tragedy is compounded by the fact that most people actually take pride in their struggle. They wear their exhaustion as a badge of honor. They tell stories about how hard they work, how much they sacrifice, how little sleep they get. This narrative of noble suffering feels righteous and virtuous, but it is actually reinforcing the very pattern that keeps them trapped. When you identify with struggle, when you make it part of your story and your identity, you ensure its continuation. The universe hears your declaration, "I am one who struggles," and it responds, "Your wish is my command." Here is more struggle. This is not cruel. This is not unfair. This is simply the law of correspondence operating as it always does. Your outer life must correspond to your inner life. If your inner narrative is one of hardship and lack, your outer experience will reflect that narrative with perfect accuracy. James Allen saw this pattern repeated endlessly in the lives of men and women around him. He saw people destroying themselves through noble effort, never understanding that effort applied in the wrong direction, with the wrong consciousness, is worse than useless. It is actually counterproductive, because it reinforces the belief that life is hard, that you must fight for every scrap, that abundance is scarce and difficult to obtain. The leaky bucket explains why lottery winners often end up bankrupt within a few years. They received a massive influx of wealth, but their bucket was never designed to hold that amount. The holes in their consciousness of worth were enormous. They had no practice at being wealthy, no internal sense that they deserved such abundance, no identity as someone who naturally possesses great resources. So the money drained away through bad investments, exploitation by others, and unconscious self-sabotage until they returned to their previous level of lack. Their external circumstances temporarily changed, but their internal thermostat remained set to poverty. The universe, through the mechanism of their own choices and the choices of those around them, brought them back into alignment with their self-image. This same principle operates in reverse for those who experience temporary setbacks but have a strong consciousness of worth. They lose a job or face a business failure, but they bounce back quickly because their bucket is sound. Their internal sense of deserving is intact. They know at a deep level that abundance is their natural state, and the universe rapidly provides opportunities to restore them to that state. They do not identify with the setback. They do not create a story of victimhood around it. They simply recognize it as a temporary disruption and move forward with confidence. Understanding the leaky bucket transforms your entire approach to success. You realize that the primary work is not external, but internal. You must become a master plumber of consciousness, identifying and repairing every hole in your self-image. This is not comfortable work. It requires you to confront beliefs you have held since childhood, to question narratives you inherited from your family and culture, to admit that you have been operating with faulty programming. Most people would rather work 3 jobs than do this internal work, because external work feels concrete and measurable. You can see the hours you put in. You can count the tasks you complete. But internal work is subtle and requires a different kind of courage. It requires you to sit with uncomfortable truths about yourself. It requires you to acknowledge that you have been complicit in your own limitation. It requires you to take responsibility not just for your actions but for your thoughts and beliefs. This is why so few people ever escape the cycle of struggle. Not because they lack discipline or work ethic, but because they refuse to examine the bucket they are trying to fill. James Allen wrote that circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. Your current financial situation is not a punishment or a random occurrence. It is a perfect reflection of your consciousness of worth. If you are struggling, your bucket has holes. If you are thriving, your bucket is sound. This is not a judgment. This is diagnostic information. Once you understand this principle, you stop wasting energy blaming external factors and start investing energy in internal transformation. You stop asking why life is so hard and start asking what beliefs are creating this experience of hardship. You stop looking for the next opportunity or strategy and start building the consciousness that naturally attracts opportunities and knows how to execute strategies effectively. The shift is subtle but profound. You move from being a victim of circumstances to being the creator of circumstances. You move from hoping the universe will finally reward your suffering to understanding that the universe is already responding to your signal and will continue to respond to whatever signal you broadcast. If you broadcast unworthiness, you receive experiences that confirm unworthiness. If you broadcast natural abundance, you receive experiences that confirm abundance. The choice has always been yours, but no one taught you that you had a choice. No one explained the mechanism. No one showed you the holes in your bucket. The water you pour represents your effort, your time, your energy, your talent, your labor. These are valuable resources and you have been pouring them generously. But the bucket represents your capacity to receive, to hold, to integrate success into your identity. If this capacity is compromised, if your self-image cannot accommodate abundance, then all your pouring is futile. You will work yourself to exhaustion and still end up empty. This is the fate of millions of good, honest, hard-working people who never learned the law of worth. They believed the cultural mythology that hard work alone is sufficient. They believed that if they just kept pouring, eventually the bucket would fill. But a bucket with holes never fills, no matter how much water you pour. It can only be filled when the holes are repaired. And repairing those holes requires a completely different kind of work than the external labor you have been doing. It requires meditation on your own value. It requires conscious reprogramming of your beliefs. It requires you to challenge every thought of limitation and replace it with a thought of natural abundance. It requires you to stop identifying with struggle and start identifying with ease. It requires you to practice receiving without guilt or apology. It requires you to claim your worthiness not as something you must earn, but as something that is your birthright. This work is invisible to others. No one will congratulate you for it. No one will give you a medal for reprogramming your subconscious. But this work is the only work that actually changes your life at the foundational level. Everything else is rearranging furniture on the Titanic. You can change jobs, change cities, change strategies, change partners, but if you do not change your consciousness of worth, you will recreate the same patterns in every new situation. The leaky bucket travels with you wherever you go because it is not a physical object but a mental structure. It is the architecture of your self-image, and until you rebuild that architecture, your external efforts will continue to drain away. James Allen was not speaking metaphorically when he said that a man is literally what he thinks. Your thoughts are not passive observations of reality. They are the creative forces that shape reality. Every thought of lack creates a hole in your bucket. Every thought of unworthiness enlarges those holes. And conversely, every thought of natural abundance begins to repair the damage. Every affirmation of your inherent worth seals another leak. This is not magical thinking. This is understanding the actual mechanics of consciousness and how it interfaces with the material world. The question you must ask yourself is brutally honest. What is my bucket's capacity right now? If someone handed you $1 million today, could you hold it? Could your identity accommodate being a millionaire, or would you find ways to sabotage it back down to your comfort zone? If an incredible opportunity presented itself, would you feel worthy of seizing it? Or would you hesitate and talk yourself out of it because deep down you believe such opportunities are for other people? If success started flowing toward you, would you receive it with gratitude and confidence, or would you feel like an imposter waiting to be exposed? Your honest answers to these questions reveal the true state of your bucket. Most people discover, when they examine honestly, that their bucket is riddled with holes. They have been programmed for limitation from childhood. They have absorbed beliefs about money being scarce, success being difficult, and worthiness being something that must be earned through suffering. These beliefs have created a container that cannot hold abundance. And until they repair this container through conscious internal work, all their external efforts will produce disappointing results. This is the truth that James Allen came to reveal, and it is the truth that will set you free if you have the courage to embrace it. The leaky bucket is not a life sentence. It is a diagnosis, and with diagnosis comes the possibility of cure. You were not born with holes in your bucket. You developed them through years of conditioning. And what was learned can be unlearned. What was programmed can be reprogrammed. The bucket can be repaired, reinforced, expanded. But this requires you to stop pouring for a moment and start examining. Stop adding more hours to your work schedule and start adding more value to your self-image. Stop seeking external validation and start generating internal validation. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that you are worthy and start declaring it yourself. The repair work begins the moment you recognize that the problem is not how much you are pouring, but what you are pouring into. Once you see the holes clearly, you can begin the sacred work of filling them with new beliefs, new thoughts, new internal declarations. You can begin to build a bucket that is not just intact but expanded, capable of holding more abundance than you currently dare to imagine. This is the promise of the law of worth. This is the secret that changes everything. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. This single sentence from James Allen's masterwork contains the entire philosophy that most people spend their lives avoiding. You are not a separate entity, trying to manipulate a hostile universe into giving you what you desire. You are a broadcasting station, constantly sending out a signal of your true nature, and the universe is an infinite receiving station that responds to your signal with perfect accuracy. The quality of what you attract into your life is not determined by what you claim to want or even what you work toward. It is determined by what you are at the deepest level of your being. This is the mirror law, and it operates without exception. Your external circumstances are a precise reflection of your internal state. If you want to know what you truly believe about yourself, do not listen to your words. Look at your results. Your bank account is a mirror. Your relationships are mirrors. Your health is a mirror. Your opportunities are mirrors. Everything in your outer world is showing you what exists in your inner world. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the reflection without ever turning around to look at themselves. The mirror law explains why vision boards and affirmations alone do not work for most people. They stand in front of the mirror saying, "I am wealthy, I am successful, I am abundant," while their actual inner state is screaming the opposite message. The mirror does not respond to your words. It responds to your vibration, your authentic signal, your true self-concept. You cannot fool the universe with positive thinking any more than you can fool a mirror by standing in front of it and claiming you are taller than you are. The mirror reflects what is, not what you wish to be, and the universe, through the mirror law, reflects your actual consciousness, not your aspirational statements. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the perfection of the system. The universe is giving you exact feedback about your inner state so that you can adjust it. Your current results are not a judgment. They are information. They are telling you precisely what signal you are broadcasting so that you can choose to broadcast a different signal if you desire different results. James Allen understood that most human suffering comes from this misalignment between the inner and outer world. People want outer abundance while maintaining inner poverty. They want outer success while nurturing inner feelings of inadequacy. They want outer respect while harboring inner self-contempt. This creates a state of perpetual frustration because the mirror law will not allow such inconsistency to persist. Either your outer world will degrade to match your inner world, or you will sabotage any temporary outer success until alignment is restored. You cannot maintain a reality that does not match your self-image. Your self-image is the source code, and your circumstances are the program running from that code. If you want to change the program, you must change the source code. Any other approach is futile. You can change jobs 1,000 times, but if your inner programming says you are worth $40,000 a year, you will find yourself back at that income level through one mechanism or another. You can enter a new relationship, hoping this time will be different, but if your inner programming says you are unworthy of love, you will either attract someone who confirms that belief or sabotage a healthy relationship until it validates your programming. The mirror law is absolute. Work is merely the channel through which your consciousness manifests results, but the mind is the source. If the source is polluted with feelings of unworthiness, the channel becomes useless or even counterproductive. You can engage in perfect strategies, follow proven systems, and execute flawlessly, but if your mind is broadcasting unworthiness, those actions will either attract poor results or you will unconsciously sabotage the process before success can materialize. This is why two people can follow the exact same business model with the same level of effort and get completely different results. One person's consciousness supports success, and the other's undermines it. The actions are identical, but the consciousness behind the actions is vastly different. One person believes at a cellular level that they deserve the fruits of their labor. The other believes they must struggle and prove themselves worthy through suffering. The universe responds to the belief, not the action. The action is simply the vehicle through which the belief becomes physical reality. Without the right consciousness, that vehicle has no fuel. It may have the appearance of movement, but it goes nowhere. Most people approach success backward. They think that if they achieve external success, they will finally feel worthy inside. They believe the sequence is, get the money, then feel abundant. Get the recognition, then feel confident. Get the relationship, then feel lovable. But the mirror law operates in the opposite direction. You must feel it inside first, and then the mirror reflects it outside. You must become it internally before you can attract it externally. This is not a cruel joke. This is actually a profound gift because it means you have total control over your destiny. You do not have to wait for external circumstances to change before you can feel worthy. You can change your internal state right now, in this moment, regardless of your circumstances. And when you do, the mirror law guarantees that your external circumstances will begin to shift to match your new internal state. The shift may not happen instantly, but it will happen inevitably. The universe has no choice but to reflect your consciousness. This is its nature. This is how the system operates at the most fundamental level. The pollution in the source, the feelings of unworthiness that contaminate your consciousness, did not appear randomly. They were installed systematically through years of conditioning. Every time you were told you were not good enough, a drop of poison entered the source. Every time you compared yourself to others and found yourself lacking, more pollution seeped in. Every time you experienced failure and concluded that you were fundamentally flawed, the contamination deepened. Over time, these drops accumulated into a toxic reservoir that now colors everything that flows from your mind into your life. You look at opportunities through the lens of this pollution and see reasons why they would not work for you. You look at successful people through this lens and see them as fundamentally different from you, as if they possess some quality you lack. You look at your own efforts through this lens and unconsciously undermine them because success would contradict your polluted self-image. The pollution creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe you are unworthy, so you act in ways that produce unworthiness, which confirms your belief, which strengthens the pollution, which perpetuates the cycle. Breaking this cycle requires what Alan called the purification of thought. You must become a guardian at the gates of your mind, refusing entry to thoughts of limitation, lack, and unworthiness. Every time such a thought arises, you must challenge it consciously. Is this thought true, or is it simply old programming? Is this belief serving my highest good, or is it perpetuating my limitation? Would I accept this thought if I knew it was creating my reality, or would I reject it? This practice of thought surveillance is exhausting at first because you discover just how polluted your inner source has become. Thoughts of unworthiness arise automatically, dozens of times per day. But with persistence, you begin to starve these thoughts of attention and energy. You stop feeding the pollution, and gradually, the source begins to clear. New thoughts can emerge. Thoughts of natural worthiness, thoughts of inherent value, thoughts that align with abundance rather than lack. And as the source purifies, the channels of your work suddenly become effective. The same actions that previously produced meager results now produce abundant results because they are flowing from a clean source rather than a polluted one. The mirror law is impersonal. It does not care about your history, your excuses, your reasons for feeling unworthy. It simply reflects what is. This impersonality is actually liberating once you understand it. You are not being judged. You are not being punished for past mistakes. You are simply receiving feedback about your current signal, and you can change your signal at any moment. The universe does not hold grudges. It does not remember yesterday's broadcast. It only responds to what you are broadcasting right now. This means that your past does not determine your future, unless you allow it to by continuing to broadcast the same signal. Many people trap themselves in the past by continuously replaying old stories of limitation. They tell themselves and others about their disadvantaged background, their lack of education, their failed attempts, their bad luck. Each retelling strengthens the signal of limitation. Each repetition confirms to the universe that this is who they are, and the mirror faithfully reflects this identity back to them through continued limitation. But the moment they change their story, the moment they begin to broadcast a new identity, the mirror must change. It has no choice. This is law. James Allen wrote that a man can only rise, conquer, and achieve by lifting up his thoughts. This is not poetry. This is mechanics. Your thoughts are the most powerful force in your life, more powerful than your actions, your circumstances, or your history. Your thoughts create your consciousness, and your consciousness creates your reality. If you want to change your reality, you must change your thoughts. Not superficially through forced affirmations, but fundamentally through deep examination and reprogramming. You must identify the core beliefs that are creating your current results and consciously replace them with beliefs that will create your desired results. This is the work that no one wants to do because it is invisible and uncomfortable. It requires you to admit that you have been wrong about yourself, that you have been operating with faulty programming, that the limitations you have experienced are not cosmic injustice, but the inevitable consequence of your consciousness. This admission feels like death to the ego. The ego wants to maintain its story of victimhood because that story protects it from responsibility. If you are a victim, you are not responsible. If circumstances are to blame, you are innocent. But this innocence costs you your power. The moment you accept that your consciousness is creating your results, everything changes. Suddenly, you are not powerless. You are the most powerful force in your own life. You can change your thoughts, which changes your consciousness, which changes your signal, which changes what the universe mirrors back to you. The sequence is exact. The mechanism is reliable. The only question is whether you will engage in the work of transformation or continue to blame the mirror for showing you what you are broadcasting. Most people choose the latter because it is easier. It allows them to remain victims. It allows them to continue their familiar patterns. It allows them to avoid the terrifying responsibility of their own power. But you are here because some part of you is ready to step into that power. Some part of you recognizes that the old way is not working. Some part of you is willing to turn away from the mirror and examine the broadcaster. This willingness is the beginning of transformation. This recognition is the crack that allows light to enter. James Allen called this the awakening, and it is available to you right now if you choose to accept it. The work is not external. The work is internal. This cannot be emphasized enough because your entire life has programmed you to seek external solutions. You have been taught to get more education, work harder, network better, learn new skills. These things have their place, but they are secondary to the primary work of consciousness transformation. A man with a consciousness of abundance and minimal skills will outperform a man with extraordinary skills and a consciousness of lack every single time. The universe does not reward skill. It rewards consciousness. It mirrors back whatever you are broadcasting, regardless of your resume or credentials. This is why you see people with PhDs struggling financially while high school dropouts build empires. It is not about intelligence or education. It is about consciousness. It is about the signal they are broadcasting. One person, despite their lack of formal education, feels worthy of wealth and success. The other person, despite their impressive credentials, feels like an imposter waiting to be exposed. The universe mirrors both with perfect accuracy. The former attracts opportunities and knows how to seize them. The latter unconsciously sabotages opportunities or fails to recognize them when they appear because success would contradict their self-image. Understanding the mirror law transforms your relationship with failure. Failure is not evidence of your inadequacy. It is feedback about your consciousness. When you fail, the question is not what did I do wrong externally, but what was I believing internally that created this result? What signal was I broadcasting? What aspect of my consciousness needs to be purified? This shifts failure from a shameful defeat to valuable diagnostic information. You become a scientist of your own consciousness, examining your results not with judgment, but with curiosity. What can this result teach me about my inner state? What belief is being reflected here? What part of my self-image needs to be upgraded? This approach removes the emotional charge from failure and transforms it into a tool for growth. Every setback becomes an opportunity to identify and repair another hole in your bucket, to purify another aspect of your consciousness, to refine your signal so that it broadcasts with greater clarity and power. James Allen lived this philosophy. His life was a testament to the power of consciousness over circumstances, and he left us the blueprint for our own transformation. The mirror law is not a theory to be debated. It is a law to be tested through lived experience. Change your consciousness and watch your circumstances change. This is the promise, and it is absolutely reliable. Wallace Wattles taught us the certain way of acting, the precise mechanics of wealth creation. the specific steps that, if followed with discipline, will inevitably produce financial abundance. His work is a masterpiece of practical instruction, a manual for engaging with the material world in a manner that aligns with the creative forces of the universe. You know his teachings well because you have studied them. You understand the importance of acting now, of holding a clear mental image of what you desire, of moving toward your vision with focused intention. You know that wealth is created through a certain way of thinking combined with a certain way of acting, and that this combination, when sustained, must produce results as reliably as planting seeds in fertile soil must produce a harvest. Wattles gave us the blueprint for the machine of success. He showed us the levers to pull, the gears to turn, the fuel to use. His system works, and countless people have proven its effectiveness. But here is what Wattles could not fully address. And here is where James Allen provides the missing piece that makes Wattles' system sustainable rather than temporary. Wattles showed us how to build the machine, but Allen showed us how to become the person who can operate the machine without sabotaging it. The missing half of the equation that Wattles assumed but did not extensively develop is the question of worthiness. Wattles assumed that his reader would naturally feel worthy of the wealth they were pursuing. He assumed that once you understood the mechanics of wealth creation and applied them diligently, you would simply receive the results and integrate them into your life without internal conflict. This assumption works beautifully for people who already have a relatively healthy consciousness of worth. They read Wattles, they apply the principles, they get results, and those results feel natural and sustainable. But for the vast majority of people, this assumption is false. They read Wattles with great excitement. They understand the principles intellectually. They begin to apply them with enthusiasm. And then, at some point in the process, they unconsciously sabotage themselves. They start to doubt. They become inconsistent in their application. They find reasons to abandon the system just before it would have produced breakthrough results. They create emergencies or distractions that pull them away from their focused work. They attract negative people or circumstances that derail their progress. And they conclude, often bitterly, that the certain way does not work for them, that perhaps it only works for certain types of people, that perhaps they are not meant for wealth. But the problem was never with Wattles' system. The problem was that they attempted to operate a high-performance machine with faulty internal wiring. Imagine trying to power a sophisticated computer with a corrupted electrical system. The computer itself is perfectly designed, but the power source keeps surging and failing, causing crashes and malfunctions. This is what happens when someone with a consciousness of unworthiness attempts to apply the certain way. The method is perfect, but the operator's internal state keeps disrupting the process. James Allen understood this fundamental truth. Before you can reliably create wealth externally, you must first create worthiness internally. Before you can hold abundance in your hands, you must be able to hold it in your consciousness. Before you can operate the certain way consistently, you must become certain about your own value. This is not an optional upgrade. This is the foundation upon which everything else rests. Without this foundation, you are building your house on sand. The structure may rise impressively for a time, but when the storms of doubt and fear arrive, and they always arrive, the house collapses because there was nothing solid beneath it. Wattles taught us the mechanics of wealth, but Allen provides the fuel for that machine, and the fuel is consciousness. Specifically, it is a consciousness of natural worthiness, of inherent value, of deserving not as something earned through suffering, but as something that is your birthright as a thinking being created in the image of the infinite. This consciousness is not about arrogance or ego inflation. It is about alignment with truth. The truth is that the universe is abundant, not scarce. The truth is that wealth is natural, not exceptional. The truth is that you are an individualized expression of the creative power, and abundance is simply the external manifestation of that creative power flowing through you. When you understand and embody this truth, applying Wattles' certain way becomes effortless rather than strenuous. You're not trying to extract something from a reluctant universe. You are allowing something to flow through you from an infinite source. The effort shifts from desperate grabbing to joyful receiving. The energy shifts from anxiety to confidence, and the results shift from sporadic and temporary to consistent and permanent. The connection between Alan and Wattles is not coincidental. They were part of the same movement of thought, the New Thought movement that recognized the primacy of consciousness in creating reality. But they approached the subject from different angles. Wattles was the engineer, giving precise instructions for construction. Alan was the psychologist, ensuring that the builder's mind was capable of following those instructions without self-sabotage. Both are necessary. Neither is sufficient alone. You need the method and the consciousness. You need the blueprint and the worthiness. You need the certain way and the certain self-image that can sustain that way. This is why some students of Wattles become wealthy while others remain frustrated. It is not that the principles are unreliable. It is that the principles require a certain quality of consciousness to operate effectively. Those who naturally possess that consciousness succeed easily. Those who lack it struggle endlessly until they develop it. And developing it requires the work that James Allen outlined. The purification of thought, the cultivation of worthiness, the deliberate construction of a self-image that can accommodate abundance. Consider what happens when someone with deep unworthiness begins to apply Wattles' principles. They form their vision of wealth. They hold the image in their mind with focused attention. They begin to act with purpose and faith, and everything seems to be working. Opportunities begin to appear, doors begin to open, progress is being made. But underneath this surface progress, their subconscious mind is screaming in alarm. This does not match who we are. This is dangerous. We are not supposed to have this much. We are going to be exposed as frauds. We are going to lose it all and be humiliated. These unconscious beliefs, these deep programs of unworthiness, begin to generate anxiety and fear. And to relieve that anxiety, the person unconsciously creates sabotage. They might pick a fight with an important business partner over something trivial. They might make an impulsive decision that undermines months of careful work. They might suddenly lose motivation and stop taking the very actions that were producing results. They might develop a mysterious illness or depression that makes it impossible to continue. The sabotage takes many forms, but the source is always the same. The consciousness cannot hold the result, so it destroys the result to restore internal equilibrium. This is the sabotage that Wattles could not fully address, because his focus was on the external process, not the internal psychology. He assumed that anyone who understood the process would naturally complete it. But Alan knew better. Alan understood that the greatest obstacle to success is not ignorance of method, but unconscious feelings of unworthiness. A man can know exactly what to do and still fail to do it because his self-image will not permit the success that would result. This is the tragedy of human potential. We are surrounded by people who possess the knowledge and even the opportunity to transform their lives, but they cannot access that potential because their consciousness has not been prepared to receive it. They are like people standing in front of an open vault filled with gold, but they cannot enter because they believe they do not have permission. The obstacle is entirely imaginary, but its effects are completely real. Until they change their belief about their permission, about their worthiness, about their right to claim what is available, they will stand outside the vault their entire lives, complaining about scarcity while surrounded by abundance. James Allen understood that you cannot sustain the certain way of action if deep down you feel small, unworthy, or like a victim of circumstance. The certain way requires confidence, boldness, expectation of success. It requires you to move toward your vision as if success is inevitable. It requires you to make decisions from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. It requires you to take risks and invest in yourself and your future. But if your consciousness is programmed for limitation, every one of these required actions will feel uncomfortable, unnatural, even dangerous. Your subconscious will resist. Your emotions will rebel. Your old patterns will reassert themselves. And eventually, unless you address the underlying consciousness, you will revert to your default programming. You will abandon the certain way not because it does not work, but because you are not yet the person who can work it consistently. The method requires a certain quality of being, and if you lack that being, developing it must become your first priority. Otherwise, you are simply spinning your wheels, applying techniques that cannot take root in the soil of your consciousness. Alan fixes the man so that Wattles can fix the wallet. This is the proper sequence. First, internal transformation. Then, external application. First, consciousness upgrade. Then, strategic action. When this sequence is followed, success becomes inevitable and sustainable. The man who has done the internal work of establishing his worthiness does not struggle with consistency. He does not sabotage his progress. He does not lose motivation or confidence when obstacles appear. He simply continues in the certain way, because it aligns perfectly with who he has become. The method and the man are in harmony, the technique and the consciousness are matched, and the universe, following the mirror law, has no choice but to reflect this alignment in the form of abundant results. This is not magic or luck or special favor. This is the natural consequence of bringing your internal and external worlds into alignment. This is what happens when you stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. This is the power that emerges when Alan and Wattles are understood not as separate teachers, but as complementary guides on the same journey. The students who succeed with Wattles are those who either naturally possess the consciousness Alan describes, or who developed it through their own intuitive process. They read about the certain way, and something inside them said, yes, I am worthy of this, I can do this, this is for me. That internal yes was the consciousness of worth that made everything else possible. Without that yes, the techniques remain theoretical knowledge that never translates into lived experience. With that yes, the techniques become powerful tools that rapidly transform reality. The question you must ask yourself is brutally honest. Do I have that internal yes? Or am I trying to build success on a foundation of internal no? Do I feel worthy of the wealth I am pursuing? Or am I unconsciously convinced that such abundance is for others but not for me? Your answer to this question will predict your success far more accurately than your knowledge of techniques or your level of effort. Because the universe does not reward effort or knowledge. It rewards consciousness. It mirrors back whatever signal you are broadcasting, and if that signal contains static and interference from unconscious unworthiness, your results will be static and interfered with as well. This is why the integration of Alan and Wattles is so powerful. Wattles gives you the map. Alan gives you the vehicle capable of following that map. Wattles shows you the destination. Alan ensures you are the person who can arrive at that destination and remain there. Wattles provides the external blueprint. Alan provides the internal foundation. Together, they form a complete system for wealth creation that addresses both the practical and the psychological, both the method and the mindset, both the doing and the being. When you study both masters and apply both sets of teachings, you become unstoppable. You have the clarity of vision and precision of action that Wattles demands, combined with the unshakable sense of worthiness and natural confidence that Alan cultivates. This combination is rare because most people gravitate toward one or the other. They either focus on techniques while ignoring consciousness, or they focus on consciousness while ignoring practical action. But the true master understands that both are required, that they are two sides of the same coin, that you cannot separate being from doing without crippling your effectiveness in both domains. The promise of this integration is profound. When you embody the consciousness Alan describes and apply the methods Wattles prescribes, you enter a state of flow where success feels natural rather than forced. You are not pushing against resistance. You are not fighting your own subconscious. You are not doubting your worthiness or second-guessing your actions. You simply move forward with quiet confidence, knowing that you deserve what you are pursuing and that the universe must respond to your clear signal. This is mastery. This is what separates those who struggle perpetually from those who succeed inevitably. And this mastery is available to you right now, not as a distant goal, but as a present possibility. The only question is whether you will do the internal work that Alan requires, while simultaneously engaging in the external work that Wattles demands. Will you commit to both, or will you continue to pursue one while neglecting the other? Your answer will determine everything. You must go on a strict mental diet, starting immediately and continuing relentlessly until new patterns are established so deeply that they operate automatically. This is not a suggestion or a helpful tip. This is a non-negotiable requirement for anyone who is serious about transforming their consciousness of worth. You have been feeding your mind poison disguised as realism for your entire life. You have been consuming mental junk food in the form of worry, doubt, fear, comparison, and limitation. You have been allowing your consciousness to marinate in images of lack, debt, struggle, and scarcity. And then you wonder why your life reflects these things. The mental diet is about taking absolute control of what you allow into your mind, recognizing that every thought is either building your consciousness of worth or eroding it. There is no neutral territory. Every mental image, every internal conversation, every memory you replay is either strengthening your bucket or creating new holes in it. Most people have never exercised any discipline over their thought life. They allow their minds to run wild, consuming whatever content appears, replaying whatever memories surface, following whatever trains of thought arise spontaneously. This is the equivalent of eating whatever food is placed in front of you without ever considering its nutritional value or its effect on your health. Stop feeding your mind with images of lack, debt, and needing. These images are toxic to your consciousness of worth. Every time you focus on what you lack, you are sending a signal to the universe that you are one who lacks. Every time you obsess about your debt, you are identifying yourself as a debtor rather than as one who commands resources. Every time you frame your goals in terms of what you need, you are broadcasting neediness, and the universe can only respond by providing more experiences of need. The mental diet requires you to become ruthlessly selective about what thoughts you entertain. When a thought of lack arises, you must catch it immediately and refuse to feed it attention. Do not follow it. Do not elaborate on it. Do not tell yourself stories about why you lack or how difficult your situation is. Simply recognize it as mental junk food and turn your attention elsewhere. This is difficult at first because these thoughts have been your constant companions for years. They arise automatically. They feel true and important. But they are neither. They are simply habits, and habits can be changed through consistent practice and unwavering discipline. The images you focus on consistently create grooves in your consciousness. If you have been focusing on debt for years, you have a deep groove labeled debt in your mental landscape. Your thoughts naturally flow into this groove because it is familiar and well established. Every time you think about your debt, you deepen this groove, making it even more dominant in your mental life. The mental diet is about starving these negative grooves of attention while creating new positive grooves. You must deliberately redirect your attention away from lack and toward abundance, away from debt and toward prosperity, away from needing and toward having. This redirection must be done hundreds of times per day at first. It is exhausting work. Your mind will resist. It will tell you that you are being unrealistic, that you cannot ignore your problems, that you need to face facts. But the facts you are facing are simply the reflection of your past consciousness. By continuing to focus on them, you ensure they persist into your future. The mental diet is about breaking this cycle by refusing to give the old facts any more attention and instead focusing on the new facts you are creating through your transformed consciousness. These images of lack and debt signal to the universe that you are one who lacks. The universe does not judge this signal as good or bad. It simply receives it and responds accordingly. If you broadcast lack, you receive more experiences that confirm lack. If you broadcast debt, you receive more circumstances that create debt. The universe is not punishing you. It is simply being a perfect mirror, reflecting back whatever you are consistently broadcasting. This is why the mental diet is so critical. You must change the broadcast if you want to change the reflection. And changing the broadcast requires changing what you focus on mentally. You cannot continue to dwell on your problems and expect your circumstances to improve. You cannot continue to rehearse your limitations and expect to experience expansion. You cannot continue to identify with struggle and expect to experience ease. The signal must change first. The internal broadcast must shift before the external reflection can shift. This is the sequence, and it is absolute. There are no exceptions to this law. Your current results are showing you exactly what you have been broadcasting. If you want different results, you must broadcast a different signal, and that requires a mental diet. Shift your focus entirely to utility and value. This is the antidote to the poison of neediness. Instead of asking, "What do I need? What am I lacking? How can I get what I want?" you must ask, "What value can I provide? How can I serve? What utility can I offer to others?" This shift is profound because it moves you from a position of lack to a position of abundance. When you focus on what you need, you are operating from the assumption that you are deficient, that you lack something essential, that others have what you do not. This assumption creates a consciousness of poverty, regardless of your actual financial situation. But when you focus on what you can provide, you are operating from the assumption that you possess something valuable, that you have resources others need, that you are a source of value rather than a seeker of value. This assumption creates a consciousness of abundance that must eventually manifest in your external circumstances. The universe responds to what you are, not what you want. When you are a person focused on providing value, you become valuable. And valuable people are naturally compensated. You only truly deserve what you can generate value for. This is a hard truth that many people resist because it requires them to take responsibility rather than claim victimhood. You do not deserve wealth simply because you want it, or because you work hard, or because you have suffered. You deserve wealth to the extent that you provide value to others. This is not a moral judgment. This is simply how the economic system of the universe operates. Value is exchanged for value. If you want to receive more value in the form of money or opportunities or resources, you must provide more value in the form of service, solutions, creativity, or utility. The mental diet includes training your mind to constantly seek opportunities to provide value. Instead of walking through life focused on what you can get, you walk through life focused on what you can give. This shift transforms everything. It changes how you interact with people. It changes what opportunities you notice. It changes the energy you broadcast. People are naturally attracted to those who are focused on providing value because they sense that this person is a source rather than a drain. When you focus on the service you provide rather than the money you need, your sense of worth expands naturally. This is because service connects you to others in a positive way. It makes you relevant. It makes you important. It makes you someone who matters in the lives of others. And when you matter to others, when you are providing genuine value that improves their lives, you cannot help but feel worthy. The worthiness is not something you have to convince yourself of through affirmations. It arises naturally from the objective reality that you are making a difference. This is the secret that all truly wealthy people understand. They are not focused on getting. They are focused on giving value, and the getting happens automatically as a consequence. The money is simply the symbolic representation of the value they have provided. If you want more money, provide more value. If you want to feel more worthy, focus more on service. If you want abundance, become a source of abundance for others. The universe will mirror this back to you with mathematical precision. You cannot outgive the universe. Every act of genuine service, every instance of providing real value creates a debt in the cosmic ledger that must be repaid. You may not know how or when the repayment will come, but it will come because the mirror law guarantees it. The mental diet requires constant vigilance, especially in the beginning. Your old patterns are deeply ingrained. Thoughts of lack will arise automatically because they have been your default mode for years. You must catch them before they take root. The moment you notice yourself thinking about what you lack, what you need, what you are worried about, you must interrupt that thought immediately. Some people use a physical trigger, like snapping a rubber band on their wrist, to break the pattern. Others use a verbal interruption, saying stop or cancel out loud to break the thought's momentum. The specific technique matters less than the commitment to interrupt the pattern every single time it arises. You are retraining your brain, and the brain learns through repetition. Every time you catch a negative thought and redirect it to a positive one, you are weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening a new one. Over time, usually several weeks of consistent practice, the new pathway becomes dominant. The positive thoughts start to arise more naturally, the focus on value and service becomes automatic, and your entire experience of life shifts because you are no longer broadcasting lack. You are broadcasting abundance, utility, and worth. The mental diet is not about denying reality or pretending problems do not exist. It is about refusing to give problems more attention than they deserve. Yes, you may have debt, but dwelling on that debt, worrying about it, rehearsing it mentally, does nothing to eliminate it. In fact, that focus makes it worse because it strengthens your identity as a debtor. The mental diet says, acknowledge the debt factually, take whatever practical action is appropriate, and then shift your focus to creating value and generating income. Do not give the debt any more mental energy than is absolutely necessary for practical management. The same applies to any lack or limitation. Acknowledge it, address it practically, then shift your focus to what you are creating, what you are building, what value you are providing. This is not avoidance. This is strategic focus. You are choosing to put your mental energy where it will be productive rather than where it will be destructive. Worrying has never solved a problem. Fear has never created a solution. Anxiety about lack has never produced abundance. The mental diet is about breaking these useless patterns and redirecting your mental energy toward patterns that actually serve your growth and expansion. James Allen wrote that a man's mind may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. Most people have allowed their mental gardens to run wild. Weeds of worry, fear, doubt, and limitation have taken over completely. The mental diet is the process of reclaiming your garden. You must pull the weeds daily. You must plant new seeds of thought deliberately. You must protect the tender shoots of new beliefs from being choked out by the old weeds. This requires work, sustained attention, and patience. But the harvest that comes from a cultivated mind is worth every effort. A mind trained to focus on value, service, abundance, and worth will naturally create circumstances that reflect those qualities. A mind left wild, overgrown with negative thoughts, will naturally create circumstances of struggle and lack. The choice is yours. The power is entirely in your hands. You are the gardener of your consciousness. No one else can do this work for you. No one else can pull the weeds from your mind or plant new seeds of thought. This is your sacred responsibility as a conscious being. And when you accept this responsibility fully and commit to the mental diet without compromise, you begin the transformation that will change everything. If your life feels like a constant war, it is because you are fighting your own self-image. This is the tragedy that most people never recognize. They believe they are fighting external obstacles, difficult circumstances, unfair systems, or unfortunate luck. They arm themselves with strategies and techniques. They marshal their willpower and determination. They push harder, work longer, sacrifice more. And the war continues. The struggle never ends. They win occasional battles, but never the war. And they die exhausted, wondering why life had to be so difficult, never realizing that the enemy was never external. The enemy was always internal. The struggle you experience in your outer life is always a reflection of struggle in your inner life. When your actions are misaligned with your self-image, when what you are trying to achieve contradicts who you believe you are, internal resistance is inevitable, and that internal resistance manifests as external struggle. The universe is not making life difficult for you. You are making life difficult for yourself by trying to create results that your consciousness cannot accommodate. Struggle is a sign of internal resistance, a warning light on your dashboard indicating that something is wrong under the hood. Most people ignore this warning light and just push harder, which is like ignoring the check engine light and pressing harder on the accelerator. Eventually, the engine fails. Eventually, the person breaks down through illness, depression, or sheer exhaustion. The struggle is not noble. It is not necessary. It is not evidence of your dedication or work ethic. It is evidence of misalignment between your conscious goals and your subconscious programming. When these two are aligned, when what you are pursuing matches who you believe you are, action feels natural rather than forced. Progress feels inevitable rather than uncertain. Success feels like a homecoming rather than a conquest. This is the state Allen calls harmony, and it is available to anyone willing to do the internal work of aligning their self-image with their aspirations. But most people prefer to keep fighting because fighting is familiar. Fighting allows them to feel like victims. Fighting gives them an excuse for why they have not achieved their goals. If life is a war, and they are losing, well, the war must have been unfair. Success should not be a conquest. It should be an emanation. It should flow from you naturally because it matches who you are at the deepest level. Think of a flower blooming. The flower does not struggle to bloom. It does not fight against itself. The blooming is simply the natural expression of what the flower is. When conditions are right, when the seed has been properly planted and nurtured, blooming happens effortlessly. This is how success should feel for human beings. When your consciousness is aligned with your goals, when your self-image can accommodate the success you desire, achieving that success becomes as natural as the flower blooming. The struggle disappears not because the external actions become easier, but because the internal resistance disappears. You are no longer working against yourself. You are no longer sabotaging your own efforts. You are simply expressing what you are, and what you are includes the success you have been pursuing. This is mastery. This is the state that James Allen lived and taught, and this is the state available to you once you stop fighting and start aligning. Success should flow from you because it matches who you are. This requires a fundamental shift in how you think about achievement. Most people see success as something external that they must capture, conquer, or earn. They see themselves as separate from success, as lacking it, as needing to acquire it from outside themselves. This perspective guarantees struggle because it creates a gap between who you are and what you want. You are constantly trying to cross this gap, to bridge the distance between your current self and your desired success. But the gap is an illusion created by your consciousness. Success is not something you acquire from outside. Success is something you express from inside. When you become the kind of person who naturally produces successful results, success is inevitable. It is not something you have to chase. It is something that emanates from you as naturally as light emanates from the sun. The sun does not struggle to shine. Shining is simply what the sun is. Similarly, when you embody the consciousness of success, succeeding is simply what you do. It is not effortful. It is not a struggle. It is the natural expression of your being. The question that changes everything is this: who am I being while I pursue this goal? Most people focus exclusively on what they are doing. They follow techniques, execute strategies, take actions. But they never examine who they are being while they do these things. Are you being someone who is desperate and needy? Are you being someone who doubts whether success is possible? Are you being someone who feels unworthy of the success you are pursuing? If so, no amount of correct action will produce lasting results because your being is sabotaging your doing. You must become the person who already has what you desire before you can have what you desire. This is not magical thinking. This is understanding the mechanism of consciousness and manifestation. Your external circumstances must align with your internal state. If your internal state is one of lack and unworthiness, your external circumstances will reflect lack and struggle. If your internal state is one of abundance and natural confidence, your external circumstances will reflect ease and success. The being determines the having. You cannot have what you are not yet being. This is the law. You must change your internal monologue, that constant stream of thoughts and self-talk that runs through your mind all day long. Most people's internal monologue is brutally negative. It is a constant stream of criticism, doubt, worry, and limitation. I cannot do this. This is too hard. I am not good enough. I do not have what it takes. This will never work for me. I do not deserve this. People like me do not succeed. This internal monologue is not truth. It is simply programming, old beliefs that were installed years ago and have been running on autopilot ever since. But this monologue has enormous power because it is creating your self-image moment by moment. Every negative statement you make to yourself is a brick in the prison you are building around your potential. Every doubt you voice internally is a hole you are drilling in your bucket. You must take control of this monologue. You must become the guardian at the gates of your mind, refusing entry to thoughts that diminish you and deliberately installing thoughts that elevate you. This is not about lying to yourself or denying reality. This is about recognizing that your current reality was created by your past thoughts, and your future reality will be created by your present thoughts. If you want a different future, you must think different thoughts now. Most men say, I need to get this to be happy. I need to achieve this goal to feel successful. I need to earn this amount to feel secure. This is the language of lack. This is the internal monologue of someone who identifies as incomplete, who believes that something external must be added to them before they can feel whole. And as long as this is your internal monologue, you will remain incomplete because the universe mirrors your self-concept. If you are someone who needs, the universe will provide endless experiences of needing. The Master says something entirely different. The Master says, this wealth is already a natural part of who I am. This success is simply the external manifestation of my internal state. This abundance flows through me because I am a channel for the creative power of the universe. Do you see the difference? The Master does not identify with needing. The Master identifies with having, with being, with natural abundance. And because the Master's internal monologue reflects this consciousness, the Master's external circumstances must inevitably reflect it as well. The universe has no choice. It can only mirror what you are broadcasting, and the Master is broadcasting abundance, confidence, and natural worthiness. You must normalize success in your mind before it becomes normal in your pocket. This is the sequence that most people reverse. They wait for success to show up externally, thinking that once it does, they will finally feel successful internally. But this is backward. The internal must precede the external. The consciousness must precede the circumstance. You must practice feeling successful now while your bank account is still small. You must practice feeling abundant now while your circumstances still appear limited. You must practice feeling worthy now before any external validation has arrived. This is not pretending. This is not fake it until you make it. This is understanding that your current circumstances are old news, the result of your past consciousness. Your future circumstances will be determined by your present consciousness. If you wait for circumstances to change before you change your consciousness, you will wait forever because circumstances cannot change first. They can only reflect your consciousness. So you must take the leap of faith and change your consciousness now without waiting for external proof. You must declare internally, I am successful, I am abundant, I am worthy, even while your external reality seems to contradict these statements. And you must hold this new consciousness consistently until the external reality shifts to match it. This practice of normalizing success internally requires you to live in your imagination more than you live in your current circumstances. You must spend time every day mentally inhabiting the version of yourself who has already achieved what you desire. How does that version of you think? How do they speak to themselves? How do they make decisions? How do they handle challenges? How do they carry themselves? You must practice being this future self now. You must think their thoughts, feel their feelings, make their choices. This is not escapism. This is the most practical form of preparation possible. You are programming your consciousness for success before success arrives. You are creating the internal mold that will shape your external reality. You are becoming the person who can receive, hold, and sustain the success you desire. Without this preparation, success would be temporary. You would receive it and then sabotage it because you were not yet the person who could handle it. But when you normalize success internally first, when you become that successful person in consciousness before you become them in circumstances, the success that arrives is permanent because it matches who you are. James Allen wrote that he who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. But the sacrifice he spoke of was not external sacrifice. It was not about working longer hours or giving up pleasures. The sacrifice was internal. It was the sacrifice of the old self-image, the old identity, the old comfortable programming. You must be willing to let go of who you have been in order to become who you are capable of being. This is the sacrifice that most people are unwilling to make. They would rather keep their familiar self-image and hope that success somehow attaches itself to that old self, but it cannot. The old self and the new success are incompatible. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You must become new, and that requires the death of the old. This feels like loss at first. It feels uncomfortable, even frightening. Your ego resists because it identifies with the old self. But this loss is actually liberation. You are not losing anything real. You are only losing the limitations you mistook for yourself, and in exchange, you gain access to your true potential, to the success that has always been possible for you, but was blocked by your outdated self-image. The end of struggle begins the moment you realize that you are the source of both the struggle and the solution. The struggle is not imposed on you by external forces. It is generated by the misalignment between your actions and your self-image. And the solution is not found in new strategies or harder work. The solution is found in aligning your self-image with your goals. When this alignment occurs, struggle ceases. Action becomes natural. Progress becomes inevitable. Success becomes an emanation rather than a conquest. This is the promise of James Allen's teaching. This is the liberation available to anyone willing to do the internal work. The world does not need to change for you to succeed. Your circumstances do not need to improve for you to experience abundance. You only need to change your consciousness to elevate your self-image, to normalize success in your mind. And when you do, the mirror law guarantees that your external world will shift to match your internal transformation. This is not theory. This is law, and it is waiting for you to test it through lived experience. You must reconfigure the I, that fundamental sense of identity that determines everything you think, feel, and do. The I is not who you truly are. It is who you currently believe you are, and that belief has been shaped by years of conditioning, experiences, interpretations, and unconscious programming. Most people never question their I. They accept it as fixed, as given, as simply the way they are. But the I is not fixed. It is fluid. It is malleable. It can be consciously redesigned and rebuilt. And this reconstruction of the I is the most important work you will ever do, because everything in your life flows from this source. If your I is small and limited, your life will be small and limited. If your I is expansive and abundant, your life will be expansive and abundant. The external world is not creating your experience. Your I is creating your experience by filtering everything through its particular lens of belief. Change the I and you change everything. Leave the I unchanged, and nothing external you do will create lasting transformation. Most men say, "I need to get this to be happy." This statement reveals an I that is currently unhappy, lacking, incomplete. This I believes that happiness is somewhere else, in some future achievement or acquisition. This I is not whole. This I is missing something essential, and as long as this is your I, you will continue to experience lack, because the I creates the reality. If your I is one who needs, you will perpetually experience needing. The universe will provide endless circumstances that confirm your identity as one who lacks and needs. This is not punishment. This is simply the mirror law operating. You are broadcasting, "I am incomplete," and the universe is responding, "Yes, here are more experiences of incompleteness." The problem is not that you have not yet achieved your goals. The problem is that your I is configured for lack. No amount of external achievement will satisfy an I that is fundamentally programmed for incompletion. This is why some people achieve great external success and still feel empty. They got what they wanted, but their I remained unchanged. They are still operating with an I that needs, that lacks, that is fundamentally unsatisfied. The achievement did not heal the I. Only conscious reconfiguration of the I can do that. The Master says something completely different. The Master says, "This wealth is already a natural part of who I am." Notice the radical difference in this statement. The Master's I is not lacking. The Master's I is not incomplete. The Master's I is already whole, already abundant, already connected to infinite resources. The wealth is not something external that must be acquired. It is something internal that must be expressed. The Master's I does not need to get anything, because the Master's I already is everything. This is not arrogance. This is alignment with truth. The truth is that you are an individualized expression of the creative power of the universe. That creative power is infinite. It lacks nothing. And because you are an expression of it, you lack nothing at the level of your true nature. But your I, your sense of identity, has been conditioned to forget this truth. Your eye has been programmed to believe in separation, limitation, scarcity. The master has simply reconfigured their eye back to truth. They remember who they really are. And because their eye is aligned with their true nature, abundance flows through them naturally and effortlessly. You must normalize success in your mind before it becomes normal in your pocket. This bears repeating because it is the key to everything. Normalization means making something feel natural, expected, ordinary. Most people have normalized struggle. Struggle feels normal to them. It feels like just the way life is. They cannot imagine life without struggle because they have never experienced sustained ease. But struggle is only normal because you normalized it mentally. You thought about it so much, worried about it so consistently, identified with it so completely that it became your default state. And the universe, being a perfect mirror, reflected that default state back to you through your circumstances. But normalization works both ways. If you can normalize struggle, you can normalize success. If you can make lack feel ordinary, you can make abundance feel ordinary. The mechanism is the same. You must think about success consistently. You must rehearse it mentally. You must practice the feelings of success. You must make decisions from the place of someone who is already successful. You must speak to yourself the way a successful person speaks to themselves. And you must do this before the external evidence appears, because the external evidence cannot appear until the internal normalization is complete. This practice requires tremendous faith because you are acting as if something is true before you have proof that it is true. This is what stops most people. They want proof first. They want to see the money in their account before they feel wealthy. They want to see the success in their circumstances before they feel successful. But this is demanding that the mirror change before you change. This is asking the universe to violate its own laws to accommodate your lack of faith. It will not happen. The law is absolute. Internal first, external second, consciousness first, circumstances second. You must be it before you can have it. This means you must practice being successful in your mind while your circumstances still appear unsuccessful. You must practice feeling abundant while your bank account still appears limited. You must practice thinking like a wealthy person while you are still paying off debt. This feels fraudulent at first. It feels like lying to yourself. But you are not lying. You are simply aligning with a deeper truth that has not yet manifested physically. You are becoming in consciousness what you will soon become in circumstances. You are preparing the mold that will shape your future reality. Most people's eye is built on comparison. They determine who they are by measuring themselves against others. I am less than this person. I am better than that person. I am somewhere in the middle. This I is inherently unstable because it is dependent on external reference points. It is also inherently limiting because there will always be someone who appears more successful, more talented, more fortunate. The comparing eye is always vulnerable to feelings of inadequacy because no matter how much you achieve, you can always find someone who has achieved more. The master's eye is not built on comparison. It is built on an internal sense of inherent worth that is independent of external circumstances or other people's achievements. The master knows their value does not come from being better than others. It comes from being an expression of the creative power itself. Every human being is such an expression, but most have forgotten. The master simply remembers. And that remembering transforms their eye from something fragile and conditional into something solid and unconditional. This eye does not need external validation because it is validated by its connection to the source. Reconfiguring the eye requires you to catch yourself every time you think or say, I am in a limiting way. I am broke. I am unlucky. I am not good enough. I am stuck. I am a failure. Every one of these statements is programming your eye, defining your identity in limiting terms. And your identity creates your reality. If you say, I am broke, you are not just describing your current financial situation. You are defining who you are as a person. You are making brokenness part of your identity. And as long as it is part of your identity, you will find ways to remain broke because to become wealthy would require you to become someone different, which feels like death to the ego. This is why people unconsciously sabotage financial success. Becoming wealthy would contradict their I am broke identity, and the psyche will always sacrifice external circumstances to maintain internal identity coherence. The I must be protected at all costs, even if that cost is poverty, limitation, and suffering. This is the tyranny of an unchallenged I. It keeps you trapped in patterns that no longer serve you simply because those patterns feel like you. The practice is to catch every limiting I am statement and consciously replace it with an expansive one. I am broke becomes I am in the process of building wealth. I am unlucky becomes I am learning to create my own luck through aligned consciousness. I am not good enough becomes I am developing my skills and expanding my capacity. I am stuck becomes I am discovering new pathways forward. I am a failure becomes I am learning from experiences and becoming wiser. This is not positive thinking. This is identity reconstruction. You are deliberately crafting a new I that can support your growth rather than limit it. At first, these new statements feel false because your current circumstances seem to contradict them. But remember, your current circumstances are old news. They are the result of your old I. Your new circumstances will be the result of your new I, but your new I must be established first. You cannot wait for circumstances to change before you change your I. You must have the courage to declare your new I now before there is evidence, and trust that the evidence will follow as the mirror law requires. James Allen wrote that all that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his own thoughts. Your thoughts create your I, and your I creates your achievements. If you think thoughts of limitation, your I becomes limited, and your achievements become limited. If you think thoughts of possibility, your I becomes expansive, and your achievements become expansive. This is not metaphor. This is literal cause and effect. Your thoughts are the seeds from which your identity grows, and your identity is the soil from which your circumstances grow. You are a gardener with absolute control over what seeds you plant. Most people have been carelessly scattering seeds of limitation their entire lives, and then wondering why their garden produces only weeds of struggle and lack. The solution is not to work harder at pulling weeds. The solution is to stop planting weed seeds and start deliberately planting seeds of abundance, capability, and worth. This requires constant attention because the habit of negative thinking is deeply ingrained. But with practice, it becomes natural. And when planting positive seeds becomes your default mode, your entire garden transforms. The reconfigured I does not need external permission to be abundant. It does not wait for someone to give it a promotion or an opportunity or approval. It knows that it is the source of its own abundance. It knows that wealth flows through it, not to it. This is a subtle but profound distinction. Most people see themselves as recipients, hoping for wealth to flow to them from external sources. The master sees themselves as a channel through which wealth flows from the infinite source to the world. The master is not a beggar waiting for scraps. The master is a conduit for abundance. And conduits do not worry about running dry because they are connected to an infinite supply. When your I is reconfigured in this way, fear about money becomes impossible. How can you fear lack when you know you are connected to infinite abundance? How can you doubt your worthiness when you know you are an expression of the creative power? How can you feel small when you know you contain the entire universe within your consciousness? These questions become absurd when your I is properly aligned with truth, and when these fears dissolve, action becomes effortless because there is no internal resistance. You simply do what needs to be done with the confidence of someone who knows success is inevitable because it is already true in consciousness. The new I requires consistent reinforcement until it becomes permanent. You must practice being this new identity every single day, multiple times per day, until the new neural pathways are so strong that they operate automatically. This is not a weekend workshop. This is not a one-time exercise. This is a daily practice for weeks or months until the new I becomes your default operating system. You must wake up each morning and consciously step into your new I. You must make decisions throughout the day from your new I. You must handle challenges from your new I. You must go to sleep each night, reviewing the moments when you successfully embodied your new I and forgiving the moments when you slipped back into the old I. This is the work. This is the internal reconstruction that must happen before external transformation is possible. And when you commit to this work with the same intensity that most people commit to their jobs, the results are inevitable. Your eye will shift, your consciousness will transform, and your circumstances following the mirror law will reflect this transformation with perfect accuracy. This is the promise. This is the path. And it is available to you right now. The universe is a mirror, not a judge. This truth liberates you from the burden of trying to earn worthiness through suffering, or prove your value through struggle. The universe is not evaluating your moral character. It is not keeping score of your good deeds and bad deeds. It is not deciding whether you deserve abundance based on how hard you have worked or how much you have suffered. The universe is simply reflecting back to you your own self-estimate, your own internal assessment of what you are worth. If you estimate yourself as small, the universe shows you a small life. If you estimate yourself as abundant, the universe shows you an abundant life. The mechanism is impersonal and mathematical. It operates with the precision of a mirror reflecting an image. The mirror does not judge the image as beautiful or ugly, worthy or unworthy. It simply shows you exactly what is placed before it. And you are placing your consciousness before the mirror of the universe every moment of every day. What that mirror reflects back is not a commentary on your value as a human being. It is simply feedback about what you are currently broadcasting. This understanding removes all sense of cosmic injustice. When you understand that the universe is a mirror, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You stop feeling victimized by circumstances. You stop resigning yourself to limitation as if it were your fate. Instead, you start asking, "What am I broadcasting that is creating this reflection?" This question is empowering because it puts you back in control. You are not at the mercy of a judgmental universe. You are simply experiencing the consequences of your own consciousness. And consciousness can be changed. The mirror does not care what you have reflected in the past. It only cares what you are presenting to it right now. This means your entire life can change the moment you change what you are broadcasting. There is no waiting period. There is no punishment for past errors. There is only the present moment and the signal you are sending in this moment. The past only has power if you continue to broadcast the same signal from the past. Stop broadcasting it, and the past loses all power. The mirror immediately begins to reflect your new signal. The universe simply reflects your estimate of yourself. This is both the most terrifying and most liberating truth you will ever encounter. It is terrifying because it means you are entirely responsible for your current circumstances. You cannot blame your background, your education, your opportunities, or your luck. Your circumstances are a direct reflection of your self-estimate. If you are experiencing lack, it is because some part of you believes you are worth lack. If you are experiencing struggle, it is because some part of you believes struggle is your natural state. If you are experiencing limitation, it is because some part of you believes you do not deserve expansion. This is hard to accept because we all want to believe that our problems are caused by forces outside our control. But this belief, while comforting, is disempowering. It makes you a victim, and victims have no power to change their circumstances. The truth that the universe reflects your self-estimate is liberating because it means you have absolute power to change your circumstances by changing your self-estimate. You do not need anyone's permission. You do not need better circumstances. You do not need more time or more resources. You only need to change your estimate of your own worth, and the universe must respond by reflecting that new estimate back to you. Your self-estimate is not what you consciously claim about yourself. It is what you unconsciously believe about yourself. Many people consciously say they are valuable, worthy, deserving, but their unconscious beliefs tell a different story, and the unconscious beliefs are what create reality, because they are what you are actually broadcasting most of the time. The conscious mind is only aware of a tiny fraction of what is happening in your total psyche. The unconscious is running the show, operating your beliefs, generating your feelings, and broadcasting your signal. This is why affirmations alone do not work for most people. They consciously affirm I am wealthy, while unconsciously believing I do not deserve wealth. The unconscious belief is stronger, so it wins. The mirror reflects the unconscious belief. This is why the work of transformation must go deeper than surface-level affirmations. You must excavate your unconscious beliefs, bring them into the light of awareness, examine them honestly, and consciously replace them with beliefs that serve your growth. This is not easy work. The unconscious resists being examined. It prefers to remain hidden, but this work is necessary if you want lasting change. The estimate operates at multiple levels. At the surface level, you might estimate that you are worth a certain salary or position. But beneath that, you might estimate that you are only as valuable as your last achievement. Beneath that, you might estimate that you are fundamentally inadequate and must constantly prove yourself. Beneath that, you might estimate that you are unlovable or unworthy at your core. These deeper estimates are usually formed in childhood and operate completely unconsciously. But they have enormous power because they are the foundation upon which all your other estimates are built. If your deepest estimate is "I am unworthy," then no amount of external success will feel satisfying because it contradicts your core belief about yourself. You will unconsciously sabotage any success to bring yourself back into alignment with your core estimate. This is why some people achieve their goals and then fall apart. They reached a level that contradicted their deepest self-estimate, and their psyche could not tolerate the contradiction. The only way to create sustainable success is to change the deepest levels of self-estimate first. Surface-level changes will not last if the foundation remains rotten. Examining your current results is the most honest way to discover your true self-estimate. Forget what you say you believe. Look at what your life demonstrates you believe. If your bank account is small, you estimate yourself as worth small amounts. If your relationships are difficult, you estimate yourself as worth difficult relationships. If your health is poor, you estimate yourself as worth poor health. These statements are hard to accept because they feel like self-blame. But they are not blame, they are diagnosis. The doctor who tells you that you have a disease is not blaming you. The doctor is providing information so that treatment can begin. Your current circumstances are telling you what your unconscious self-estimate is so that you can begin to change it. This is valuable information, not a moral judgment. When you can look at your life without defensiveness and simply say, "Okay, this is what I have been broadcasting. This is the estimate I have been holding. Now I can consciously choose a different estimate," you begin the process of transformation. But if you resist this diagnosis, if you insist that your problems are caused by external factors, you remain stuck because you never address the actual cause. The mirror reflects instantly at the level of consciousness, but there is often a time lag in physical manifestation. This time lag confuses many people. They change their consciousness, but their circumstances do not immediately change, so they conclude that the principle does not work. But the principle works with absolute reliability. The time lag exists because physical matter is denser than consciousness and takes longer to rearrange itself. Think of turning a large ship. You turn the wheel, but the ship continues in its old direction for a while before the turn becomes apparent. The turn is happening from the moment you turn the wheel, but you cannot see it immediately. Similarly, when you change your self-estimate, the universe begins responding immediately at the level of consciousness. Opportunities begin to appear. Ideas begin to come. Circumstances begin to shift. But the full physical manifestation takes time. The key is to maintain your new self-estimate during this time lag. Do not let the unchanged external circumstances convince you to revert to your old self-estimate. Hold the new estimate steady, and the physical world must eventually conform to it. This is where most people fail. They change their consciousness for a few days or weeks, do not see immediate physical results, and revert to their old patterns. Then they blame the principle for not working. But the principle works perfectly. They simply did not maintain their new signal long enough for the physical reflection to complete. James Allen understood that patience and persistence are required. He wrote that the universe is slow but sure. The laws of consciousness and manifestation operate with perfect reliability, but they operate on their own timeline, not on your preferred timeline. You cannot demand that the universe manifest your desires instantly. You can only maintain your consciousness steadily and trust that the reflection will appear at the right time. This requires faith, but it is not blind faith. It is faith based on understanding the principle. You know that the mirror must reflect what is placed before it. You know that the universe must respond to your consciousness. You are not hoping this might work. You know it works because it is law. Your faith is simply the decision to maintain your new consciousness until the physical evidence appears. And that maintenance is the test that separates those who transform their lives from those who merely dabble in transformation. Anyone can change their consciousness for a day. Few can maintain a new consciousness for weeks or months without external validation, but those few are the ones who create permanent, profound change in their lives. The universe as mirror means you can never attract what you want. You can only attract what you are. This is why chasing specific outcomes is often counterproductive. People focus all their energy on trying to get a particular job, relationship, amount of money. But what they are really doing is broadcasting, "I do not have this. I need this. I am incomplete without this." And the mirror reflects that signal of lack. The more desperately you chase something, the more you broadcast that you do not have it, and the more the universe reflects your lack of it back to you. This is the cruel irony that traps most people in perpetual wanting. The master understands this and does not chase outcomes. The master focuses on becoming the person who naturally has those outcomes. The master focuses on embodying the consciousness of abundance, not on acquiring specific things. And when the consciousness is established, the things appear naturally without chase or struggle. They are simply the reflection of what the master has become. This is the difference between effortless manifestation and exhausting pursuit. Pursuit comes from lack. Manifestation comes from being. Pursuit broadcasts, "I need." Manifestation broadcasts, "I am." The universe responds to each with perfect accuracy. Your self-estimate is fluid. It changes based on your thoughts, experiences, and interpretations. This fluidity is both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge is that your self-estimate can degrade if you are not vigilant. A few failures, a few rejections, a few comparisons to others, and your self-estimate can plummet. When your self-estimate drops, your circumstances begin to reflect that drop. This creates a downward spiral that many people get trapped in. They experience failure, which lowers their self-estimate, which creates more failure, which lowers their self-estimate further. Breaking this spiral requires conscious intervention. You must catch yourself when your self-estimate is dropping and consciously refuse to accept the lower estimate. You must reinterpret failures not as evidence of your inadequacy, but as feedback for course correction. You must protect your self-estimate like a precious treasure because it is the source code for your entire life. The opportunity in this fluidity is that you can consciously elevate your self-estimate at any moment. You are not stuck with the estimate you have held in the past. You can decide right now that you are worth more. You can decide right now that you deserve abundance. And the moment you truly accept this new estimate, not just intellectually but at a feeling level, the universe begins reflecting it back to you. Most people's self-estimate is externally dependent. They feel good about themselves when external circumstances are good and bad about themselves when external circumstances are bad. This creates a roller coaster existence where their sense of worth rises and falls with events outside their control. The master's self-estimate is internally generated. It is not based on circumstances, but on an understanding of their essential nature as an expression of the creative power. This internal estimate is stable because it is not dependent on external validation. The master knows their worth is inherent, not earned. This knowing creates a foundation of unshakable confidence that cannot be disturbed by temporary setbacks or failures. When you generate your self-estimate internally, rather than deriving it from external circumstances, you become free. You are no longer at the mercy of a fickle world. You are anchored in a truth that transcends circumstances. And from that anchored position, you can create whatever circumstances you desire because your worth is not dependent on them. You create from abundance rather than from need. You create from confidence rather than from desperation. And what you create from that place is sustainable because it is built on a solid foundation rather than on the shifting sands of external validation. The universe reflects your estimate with absolute accuracy and zero judgment. It does not care whether you estimate yourself as worth millions or pennies. It simply shows you the reflection of your estimate. This is the great equality of the universal law. Every human being has access to the same mirror. Every human being can change their reflection by changing what they present to the mirror. The universe does not play favorites. It does not give abundance to some and deny it to others based on arbitrary criteria. It gives each person exactly what they estimate they are worth. If you are experiencing lack, it is not because the universe is withholding from you. It is because you are withholding from yourself through your low self-estimate. And the moment you raise your estimate, the universe must raise your reflection. This is not hope or wishful thinking. This is law. And you can prove it to yourself through direct experience. Change your self-estimate consciously and consistently. Maintain it despite contrary evidence from your current circumstances, and watch as your circumstances gradually shift to match your new estimate. This is the experiment that will transform your life if you are courageous enough to conduct it. You are the master of the thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition. These are James Allen's words, and they contain the entire philosophy of personal power. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are not limited by your past or your present. You are the master, the molder, the maker, the shaper. Everything in your life flows from your thought. Your character, which is the sum total of your habitual thoughts and beliefs, is shaped by your mind. And your conditions, your external circumstances, are created by your character. The sequence is exact. Thought creates character, and character creates conditions. If you want to change your conditions, you cannot directly manipulate them. You must go to the source. You must change your thoughts. And when your thoughts change, your character automatically transforms. And when your character transforms, your conditions inevitably shift to match it. This is the chain of causation that Allen illuminated, and understanding this chain gives you complete power over your destiny. You are not powerless. You are the most powerful force in your own life. But that power must be exercised at the correct level, the level of thought. Most people try to change their conditions directly while leaving their thoughts unchanged. This is why they struggle. They change jobs but bring the same mindset to the new job and get the same results. They start a new relationship but bring the same character patterns and create the same problems. They move to a new city but bring the same consciousness and find that their circumstances replicate themselves in the new location. This is frustrating and confusing until you understand the principle. Your conditions are not causing your experience. Your consciousness is causing both your experience and your conditions. Change the conditions without changing consciousness, and the consciousness will recreate conditions that match it. This is why lottery winners often go bankrupt. Their conditions changed dramatically, but their consciousness did not. Their character, their habitual ways of thinking and relating to money remained the same, and their character inevitably reshaped their conditions to match their unchanged consciousness. This is not bad luck. This is the law of correspondence operating perfectly. Conditions must correspond to character. Character must correspond to thought. Change thought, and everything else must follow. Try to change conditions without changing thought, and nothing real changes at all. You master thought by becoming aware of it and choosing it consciously rather than accepting whatever thoughts arise automatically. Most people are not masters of thought. They are slaves to thought. Thoughts arise unbidden from their unconscious programming, and they simply believe them and follow them. They do not realize that thoughts are not facts. They do not realize that they have the power to reject a thought and choose a different one. They believe that thinking is something that happens to them rather than something they do. But thinking is an activity, and like any activity, it can be done consciously or unconsciously, skillfully or unskillfully. Mastering thought means becoming the conscious chooser of your thoughts rather than the passive recipient of whatever thoughts your conditioning produces. It means monitoring your mental state continuously and redirecting it when it drifts toward negativity, limitation, or fear. It means cultivating thoughts that support your growth and refusing to entertain thoughts that undermine you. This is difficult work. Your unconscious has been generating thoughts automatically for decades, but with practice, conscious thought selection becomes natural. And when it does, you have achieved true mastery because you are now controlling the source code that generates your entire reality. You mold character through repeated thought patterns. Character is not something you are born with and cannot change. Character is the sum of your mental habits. Every time you think a thought repeatedly, you strengthen a particular aspect of your character. If you repeatedly think thoughts of courage, your character becomes courageous. If you repeatedly think thoughts of fear, your character becomes fearful. If you repeatedly think thoughts of abundance, your character becomes abundant. If you repeatedly think thoughts of lack, your character becomes miserly and contracted. This is both encouraging and challenging. Encouraging because it means you can consciously craft your character through deliberate thought patterns. Challenging because it means your current character, which might be limiting your success, is the result of thought patterns you have maintained for years. Changing character requires changing these patterns, and changing patterns requires consistent effort over time. You cannot think positively for a day and expect your character to transform. But if you think positively consistently for weeks and months, your character must transform, because character is nothing but the accumulated effect of habitual thought. This is why the mental diet is so critical. Every day on the mental diet is a day of character reconstruction. You are literally building a new self through your disciplined thoughts. Your character makes and shapes conditions through the actions it generates and the energy it broadcasts. A character of confidence creates different conditions than a character of doubt. A character of generosity creates different conditions than a character of selfishness. A character of abundance creates different conditions than a character of scarcity. The conditions you find yourself in are not random. They are the perfect reflection of your character. And your character is the perfect reflection of your habitual thoughts. So if you want different conditions, trace the chain backward. What character would create those conditions? What thoughts would create that character? Then start thinking those thoughts consistently until they become habitual. When they become habitual, your character will have transformed. And when your character transforms, your conditions must follow. This is not theory, this is the actual mechanism of personal transformation, and it is available to anyone willing to master their thoughts, mold their character, and trust that conditions will follow. Allen observed that many people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves. They want the fruit without cultivating the tree. They want the harvest without planting the seeds. They want transformed conditions without transforming their character. This is impossible, yet millions of people exhaust themselves trying to do it. They pour energy into manipulating external circumstances, managing impressions, networking, scheming, strategizing. And they wonder why their efforts produce such meager results. The reason is simple. They are working at the wrong level. They are trying to change the reflection without changing what stands before the mirror. True transformation requires you to improve yourself first. When you improve yourself, when you upgrade your character, when you master your thoughts, improved circumstances follow automatically. You do not have to chase them. They pursue you because they are the inevitable reflection of what you have become. The person you are capable of becoming will naturally create circumstances far superior to what your current self experiences. Stop trying to improve circumstances and start improving character. The circumstances will take care of themselves. The mastery of thought requires you to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes thoughts. This distinction is crucial because it gives you power over thoughts. If you believe you are your thoughts, then you are helpless when negative thoughts arise. They feel like you, so you accept them and follow them. But if you understand that you are the awareness observing thoughts, then you have the power to reject thoughts that do not serve you. A thought arises that says, you are inadequate. If you believe you are that thought, you feel inadequate and act accordingly. But if you recognize that you are the awareness observing that thought, you can say, I see this thought, but I do not accept it as truth. I choose a different thought. This ability to observe your thoughts without identifying with them is the foundation of mental mastery. It is what allows you to consciously choose empowering thoughts and reject limiting ones. Most people never develop this ability because they have never been taught that it is possible. They live their entire lives identified with their thoughts, believing that thinking is who they are. But thinking is what you do, not who you are. And once you realize this, you gain the power to do it differently. Molding character is a daily practice of becoming the person you aspire to be. You cannot wait until circumstances are perfect. You cannot wait until you achieve your goals. You must start being that person now, in your current circumstances. How would the person you aspire to be handle this challenge? How would they think about this problem? How would they make this decision? How would they speak to themselves? How would they treat others? You must ask these questions constantly and then act accordingly. This is called acting as if, but it is not pretense, it is alignment. You are aligning your present self with your ideal self, and that alignment creates a bridge that your consciousness can cross. Every time you think, speak, or act like the person you aspire to be, you strengthen that character within yourself. Every time you revert to old patterns, you weaken your progress. This is why consistency is so important. One day of positive action does not create lasting change. But when positive action becomes your consistent pattern, your character transforms permanently. And when your character transforms, your conditions must follow, because conditions cannot exist in contradiction to character for long. The universe forces alignment. The maker and shaper of condition is not someone else. It is you. This is the ultimate responsibility, and it is also the ultimate power. You cannot blame your parents, your education, your circumstances, or your luck for your current conditions, because you are the one creating them through your thoughts and character. This is hard to accept because accepting it means giving up all your favorite excuses. But it is also incredibly liberating because it means you have the power to create any conditions you desire. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are the force. The conditions of your life are your creation. If you do not like them, create different ones by thinking different thoughts and developing different character traits. The power has always been yours. You simply did not know how to use it. Alan came to show you how. The formula is simple. Master your thoughts, mold your character in alignment with your aspirations, and watch as your conditions reshape themselves to match. This is not magic. This is the natural operation of consciousness in the physical world, and it works with mathematical precision for anyone who applies it correctly. Alan's teaching is not about positive thinking in the superficial sense. It is about understanding the causal relationship between thought, character, and conditions, and then consciously working at the level of cause rather than effect. Most people work at the level of effect, trying to manipulate conditions directly. They are frustrated and exhausted because working at the level of effect is working against the current. It is fighting the natural flow of creation. The master works at the level of cause. The master focuses on thoughts and character, knowing that conditions are simply the inevitable downstream effect. When you work at the level of cause, you work with the current. You are aligned with the natural creative process, and the results come easily rather than through struggle. This is the difference between effortful doing and natural being. Effortful doing tries to force conditions to change. Natural being allows conditions to change by changing the source from which they flow. One is exhausting and often futile. The other is sustainable and always effective. The choice is yours. Will you continue trying to change your reflection by touching the mirror, or will you turn around and change what the mirror is reflecting? Synthesis of power emerges when you understand that all these principles work together as a unified system. You do not apply them separately. You embody them simultaneously. You are simultaneously holding a clear vision of what you desire, maintaining a consciousness of natural worthiness, providing consistent value to others, disciplining your thoughts through a mental diet, and acting in the certain way that Wallace Wattles taught. These are not separate practices. They are different facets of the same diamond, different expressions of the same fundamental understanding. Consciousness creates reality. When all these facets are polished and working in harmony, you become a powerhouse of manifestation. Results appear that seem miraculous to others, but are simply the natural consequence of aligned consciousness operating in a lawful universe. The synthesis is not about doing more things. It is about being more integrated. It is about eliminating the contradictions in your consciousness, where one part wants abundance while another part feels unworthy, or one part takes action while another part doubts whether the action will matter. The universe is always listening to the totality of your signal, not just the part you are consciously aware of. If you are consciously affirming wealth while unconsciously broadcasting unworthiness, the unconscious broadcast is louder because it is connected to deeper emotional patterns. This is why surface-level techniques often fail. They are trying to override a weak conscious signal with a strong unconscious signal, which is like trying to tune a radio to a distant station while standing next to a powerful local transmitter. The local signal overwhelms the distant one. The synthesis of power requires you to get all parts of your consciousness broadcasting the same signal. When your conscious desires, your unconscious beliefs, your emotional state, and your habitual actions are all aligned and broadcasting abundance, the universe has no choice but to respond with overwhelming force. The resistance disappears, the struggle ceases, the results begin to flow with a naturalness that feels almost effortless. This is mastery, and it is available to anyone willing to do the internal work of integration. Integration means there is no war within yourself. Most people are at war internally. One part wants success while another fears it. One part desires wealth while another believes wealth is corrupting. One part wants to take bold action while another is paralyzed by fear of failure. This internal war creates massive energy drain and produces contradictory results. You take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, making progress but never breaking through to the level you desire. The synthesis of power requires you to negotiate a peace treaty with yourself. You must identify all the parts of your consciousness that are in conflict and bring them into alignment. Sometimes this means reassuring the fearful part that you will not be reckless. Sometimes it means educating the part that believes limiting beliefs about money. Sometimes it means integrating the part that was traumatized by past failures and is protecting you by sabotaging new attempts. This internal diplomacy is sophisticated work, but it is necessary if you want all your power flowing in the same direction rather than cancelling itself out through internal conflict. James Allen's law of worth and Wallace Wattles' certain way are not competing philosophies. They are complementary halves of a complete system. Allen ensures you have the consciousness to sustain success. Wattles ensures you have the method to achieve success. Without Allen, Wattles' method produces temporary results that are sabotaged by unconscious unworthiness. Without Wattles, Allen's consciousness might produce a sense of peace, but not necessarily material abundance because there is no clear method of action. Together, they create unstoppable momentum. You have both the internal worthiness to receive and hold success, and the external method to create and attract it. This combination is what separates those who merely understand success principles from those who actually achieve extraordinary success. Understanding without application is useless. Application without proper consciousness is exhausting and often futile. But understanding plus proper consciousness plus consistent application equals inevitable success. This is the formula, and it has been tested by millions of people throughout history. It works. The only question is whether you will work it. The synthesis creates a feedback loop of increasing power. As you apply these principles and begin to see results, those results boost your confidence and sense of worthiness. That increased worthiness allows you to take bolder action and hold a bigger vision. That bolder action and bigger vision create even better results. Those results further strengthen your worthiness, and the upward spiral accelerates. This is why success often seems to accelerate after a certain point. The person who struggles for years suddenly seems to take off exponentially. This is not luck or sudden opportunity. This is the feedback loop of consciousness and results reinforcing each other. Each success proves the principles, which increases faith, which increases consistency of application, which produces more success. The synthesis creates momentum that becomes self-sustaining. Eventually, success feels easier than struggle because all your internal systems are aligned and operating efficiently. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are flowing with yourself, and that flow carries you to destinations that would have required immense struggle from your old, conflicted state. It is time to raise your thermostat, to adjust that internal setting that has been determining the temperature of your entire life. You have been living at a certain set point of worthiness, and that set point has been creating everything you experience. If your thermostat is set to poverty consciousness, you could work 20 hours a day and still find yourself struggling, because the moment your external circumstances rise above your internal setting, your subconscious activates to bring you back down to your programmed level. This is not punishment. This is simply your internal system doing what it was designed to do: maintain equilibrium. But equilibrium at a low setting is not destiny. It is simply programming, and programming can be changed. The thermostat can be reset. You can decide right now, in this moment, that your old setting no longer serves you. You can consciously choose a new setting that reflects the abundance you truly desire and deserve. This is not wishful thinking. This is understanding the actual mechanism of consciousness and deliberately adjusting it to serve your highest aspirations rather than your inherited limitations. The abundance that belongs to you is not something you must earn through suffering or prove yourself worthy of through endless struggle. It already belongs to you by virtue of your existence as a conscious being in an abundant universe. The universe is not scarce. The universe is infinite in its resources, infinite in its creativity, infinite in its capacity to provide. Scarcity is a human invention, a belief system that gets passed down through generations and accepted as reality when it is merely consensus opinion. The truth is that there is more than enough for everyone. The truth is that wealth is natural, not exceptional. The truth is that abundance is your birthright, not something you must beg for or compete for or sacrifice your life force to obtain. But you cannot claim your birthright while feeling unworthy of it. You cannot inherit what you believe does not belong to you. The abundance is there, waiting, available, ready to flow into your life the moment you open yourself to receive it. And opening yourself to receive it requires one thing above all else: adjusting your internal thermostat to a setting that can accommodate abundance without panic or sabotage. Most people, when abundance starts to flow toward them, experience an unconscious alarm. This is too much. This is not me. I do not deserve this. Something bad will happen. I will lose it. People will judge me. I will be exposed as a fraud. These fears arise from a thermostat set too low. The abundance exceeds the setting, and the internal system perceives this as danger rather than blessing. So the system does what it is designed to do. It creates circumstances to reduce the abundance back down to the familiar setting. You make a poor investment. You overspend. You create a crisis that requires the money you just received. You develop a health problem that consumes your resources. The specific mechanism varies, but the result is always the same. You return to your thermostat setting. This is why raising the thermostat is so critical. You must expand your capacity to hold abundance. You must make wealth feel normal rather than exceptional. You must practice inhabiting a consciousness of abundance until your nervous system stops perceiving it as threatening. When your thermostat is properly set, abundance does not trigger alarm. It triggers gratitude and peaceful acceptance because it feels natural, like finally coming home after a long journey in foreign lands. Declaring your worthiness is not arrogance. It is alignment with truth. The universe does not create inadequate beings. Every human being is an individualized expression of the creative power that animates all existence. That creative power is infinite, and because you are an expression of it, you contain infinity within yourself. Your true nature is abundance, creativity, power, love, wisdom. These are not qualities you must develop or earn. These are qualities you must remember and reclaim. The declaration, "I am worthy of what I desire," is not a boastful claim. It is a simple statement of fact. You are worthy not because of what you have accomplished, or how hard you have worked, or how much you have suffered. You are worthy because worthiness is your essential nature as a conscious being. A flower does not question its worthiness to bloom. A river does not question its worthiness to flow. The sun does not question its worthiness to shine. These elements simply express their nature without self-doubt or apology. And you are meant to do the same. Your nature is abundance. Declaring your worthiness is simply acknowledging this truth and refusing to accept the lies of limitation that were taught to you by people who did not know better. The universe is waiting to hear your new definition. For years, perhaps decades, you have been broadcasting a definition of yourself as small, limited, unworthy, insufficient. And the universe, being a perfect mirror, has been reflecting that definition back to you through your circumstances. But the universe does not care about your old definition. It does not hold grudges. It does not keep records of your past declarations. It only responds to what you are broadcasting right now, in this present moment. This means that you can change your entire life by changing your declaration. You can become someone new simply by declaring a new identity. The universe will not argue with you. It will not require proof before it responds. It will simply begin to reflect your new declaration back to you through gradually shifting circumstances. But the declaration must be authentic. It must be more than words. It must be felt in your body, believed in your heart, and maintained in your mind consistently. The universe responds to the totality of your signal, not just the words you speak. But when your declaration is authentic and consistent, the universe has no choice but to honor it, because that is the law. Writing your declaration in the comments creates a public commitment that amplifies its power. When you declare something publicly, you engage different psychological mechanisms than when you merely think it privately. Public declaration creates accountability. It creates witnesses. It creates a sense of point of no return. You are telling the world, and more importantly telling yourself, that you are stepping into a new identity. This is not about seeking validation from others. This is about using the act of public declaration to strengthen your own commitment. When you write, "I am worthy of what I desire," where others can see it, you are making a statement to the universe that you are serious about this transformation. You are burning bridges to your old identity. You are making retreat more difficult and forward movement more inevitable. This is a powerful psychological tool that the wise have used throughout history. They understood that private transformation is important, but public declaration accelerates transformation by engaging social and psychological forces that purely private work cannot access. Let the universe hear your new definition, not with timidity or apology, but with the confidence of someone who is simply stating a fact. You are not asking permission. You are not hoping it might be true. You are declaring what is true, regardless of current circumstances. The circumstances are old news, the reflection of your old definition. Your new declaration is creating new circumstances even as you speak it. The universe is already responding. The mirror is already beginning to shift, but you must hold your declaration steady. You must not let contrary evidence from your current situation cause you to retreat back into your old definition. The old circumstances will persist for a time while the new ones are forming. This is the test. Can you maintain your new declaration while the old reflection still appears in the mirror? Can you stand firm in your new identity before the evidence appears? This is what separates those who transform from those who merely wish for transformation. The transformer declares first and waits for the evidence. The wisher waits for evidence before declaring. One approach works. The other keeps you trapped forever in waiting. Your declaration is not just words. It is the activation of a new program in your consciousness. Every time you speak it, write it, think it, you strengthen the new neural pathways that support your new identity. Every repetition weakens the old pathways that supported limitation. Your brain is neuroplastic, capable of reorganizing itself based on what you consistently focus on. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. When you repeatedly declare your worthiness, you are literally rewiring your brain to support a new self-concept. This rewiring takes time, usually several weeks of consistent practice before the new pathways become dominant. But it happens with absolute reliability if you persist. The question is not whether it will work. The question is whether you will maintain the practice long enough for it to work. Most people give up after a few days or weeks when they do not see immediate external changes. They do not understand that the internal changes must complete first. They do not understand that they are literally growing new neural structures that will support their new identity. This growth requires time and repetition, just as growing physical muscle requires time and repetition. But when the growth is complete, your new identity operates automatically. You no longer have to consciously affirm your worthiness. You simply are worthy, and that worthiness broadcasts effortlessly. The challenge is simple but profound. Live from your declared worthiness for the next 30 days without wavering. This is the experiment that will prove the principles to you through direct experience. For 30 days, make every decision from the consciousness of someone who is worthy of abundance. When you face a choice, ask yourself, what would someone who knows they deserve abundance choose here? When you encounter a challenge, ask yourself, how would someone who is naturally worthy handle this? When you interact with others, ask yourself, how would someone who values themselves highly show up in this interaction? This is not about arrogance or treating others poorly. This is about honoring yourself and your value in every moment. For 30 days, refuse to entertain thoughts of unworthiness. When such thoughts arise, and they will arise frequently at first, immediately replace them with thoughts of natural worth. For 30 days, do not complain about lack or limitation. Instead, focus consistently on the value you are providing and the abundance you are creating. For 30 days, act as if success is inevitable, not because you are pretending, but because you understand that success is the natural consequence of aligned consciousness. This challenge will be difficult because your old patterns will resist. Your unconscious programming will fight to maintain the familiar setting. You will encounter situations that seem to prove your old beliefs about limitation. You will face doubts and fears. Your old identity will stage what feels like a final battle to prevent its own dissolution. This is normal. This is expected. This is actually a sign that you are succeeding, because transformation always encounters resistance from the old structure that is being transformed. The challenge is not to avoid this resistance, but to persist through it. When doubts arise, acknowledge them, but do not believe them. When fears surface, feel them, but do not obey them. When circumstances seem to contradict your new declaration, remind yourself that circumstances are always lagging behind consciousness, and that new circumstances are forming even as the old ones persist. The person who can maintain their new consciousness for 30 days, despite all contrary evidence, will emerge transformed, because 30 days is long enough for new neural pathways to establish themselves and for the universe to begin reflecting the new signal in tangible ways. The final call to action is not just to watch this video or like it or subscribe to the channel, though those actions support the mission of spreading this wisdom. The final call to action is to implement what you have learned. Knowledge without application is worthless. Understanding without practice changes nothing. You now know the law of worth. You understand that you do not get what you work for. You get what you think you deserve. You understand that your consciousness creates your circumstances through the mirror law. You understand that hard work without a consciousness of worth is futile. You understand that you must reconfigure your identity, maintain a mental diet, normalize success in your mind, and align your actions with your worthiness. But knowing these things intellectually will not change your life. Only applying them consistently will create transformation. The information is useless until it becomes practice. The principles are powerless until they are embodied. You must take what you have learned today and begin applying it immediately, not tomorrow, not when circumstances are better, but right now in this moment with your very next thought. Write your declaration below. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until you have figured everything out. Do not wait until your circumstances improve. Write it now. I am worthy of what I desire. Let these words be the first expression of your new identity. Let this public declaration be the moment when you draw a line in the sand of your life and say, everything before this moment was my old story. Everything after this moment is my new story. Let this be the moment when you stop accepting limitation as your destiny and start claiming abundance as your birthright. The universe is not judging whether you are ready. The universe is simply waiting for your signal. When you write your declaration, you are sending that signal. You are telling the universe, I am no longer the person I was. I am becoming the person I am meant to be. And that person is worthy of abundance, success, love, health, joy, and every good thing. The universe will respond to this signal immediately. You may not see the response immediately in your physical circumstances, but the response is happening in the realm of consciousness, where all physical manifestation begins. Your declaration is your commitment, not to me or to this channel, but to yourself. You are making a promise to yourself that you will no longer accept the limitations you have lived with. You are making a commitment that you will do the internal work required to raise your thermostat. You are taking responsibility for your consciousness and therefore for your life. This is the most important commitment you will ever make because everything else in your life depends on it. Your relationships, your career, your health, your happiness all flow from your consciousness of worth. When you commit to raising your consciousness, you commit to transforming every area of your life. This is not a small thing. This is everything. This is the difference between living a life of quiet desperation and living a life of purpose and abundance. This is the difference between dying with your potential unrealized and dying with the satisfaction of having expressed your greatness. The choice is entirely yours, and you must make it now because later is not a guarantee. Now is the only moment you have. Now is the only moment where change can happen. Now is when you must decide who you are and what you deserve. The Masters left us this wisdom not as entertainment or interesting philosophy to discuss intellectually. They left it as practical instruction for transformation. James Allen lived in poverty for much of his life, but he discovered these principles, and they changed everything for him. He wanted to share what he learned so that others would not have to suffer as he suffered. Wallace Wattles struggled financially until he applied the principles he later taught, and then his circumstances transformed rapidly. These men were not theorists. They were practitioners who tested these principles in the laboratory of their own lives and found them to be absolutely reliable. They left us their findings not to make themselves famous, but to liberate others from the prison of limitation. You dishonor their legacy if you treat their wisdom as mere information to be collected. You honor their legacy by applying what they taught and transforming your own life. When you succeed, you prove the principles. When you prove the principles, you inspire others. When you inspire others, the wisdom spreads. This is how the world changes, one transformed consciousness at a time. You have reached the end of this teaching, but this is not an end. This is a beginning. This is the moment when you stop being a student who passively receives information and become a practitioner who actively applies wisdom. This is the moment when you stop waiting for someone to save you and realize that you are the one you have been waiting for. This is the moment when you stop blaming circumstances and start creating circumstances. This is the moment when you claim your power as the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition. Everything you need is already within you. The power is yours, the wisdom is yours, the responsibility is yours, and the abundance that will flow from your elevated consciousness is yours. All that remains is for you to make the declaration and then live from that declaration with unwavering consistency. I am worthy of what I desire. Write it, speak it, embody it, and watch as your life transforms to reflect this truth. The universe is waiting. Your new life is waiting. Everything you have ever wanted is waiting. The only thing standing between you and that life is your willingness to adjust your thermostat and claim what has always been yours. Make the declaration now. Your transformation begins today.